Toobin is an arcade port with real wacky sound effects. We take a deep dive into the river on Amigos, everything Amiga. Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're talking about Toobin.
Yeah, man. Toobin.
On a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Aaron, have you ever been tubing?
I have been tubing. A bunch of different places. It's great. I mean, most of the time you get you an old inner tube, throw that thing in the pool or river, or if you're at a place that's got a big set of pools, they've got like those things you float around in. It's fun, It's not too bad. I've never been tubing in a river like this one, nor would I.
Have you ever been tubing where you're actually pulled by a boat?
I have not done that, no.
I did that a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Eep and I went to visit my best college friend who owns a boat down in Virginia. And his wife took control, and me and him got on the back of this tube. And this is one of these tubes that's like massive. It's big enough for two grown men.
Where do they get those? Where do those go in? Do they go in something?
No. This is built for this activity.
I see. I understand.
Okay, purpose-built tube.
Yeah.
It's like the tubes at the wave pool. They're not putting those in lawnmowers. So anyway, you get on this thing, and the boat starts going about 25 miles an hour. But when you're on the tube, it feels like you're going 25,000 miles an hour.
25 is pretty fast, boat.
And so you're flying, and your eyes get like this, and there's water splashing everywhere.
Yeah.
And Greg's like, "Isn't this fun?" I was terrified. I was terrified.
How were you sitting in the tube?
Yeah, I wasn't. You mount the tube, okay, in the traditional position.
What's that mean?
And then you grab on there's handles, okay? And you grab like this, and then you're just laying flat on the tube while it's dragging you across the water.
See, I usually get the inner tube with the old butt in the donut hole.
Yeah, that's the lazy river technique.
That's right.
I like that. That's much better.
What you were in is the flat belly doom
That's
technique.
right. That's right.
Is the hole still in the tube?
There's no hole.
So this is just a big, like a floater.
Whenever you catch the wake, you go up into the air,
yeah.
And then you smack that water, bam, and you're holding on for dear life.
Did you fall off at any point?
No, I was scared to fall off.
Well, I mean, but you don't want to.
No.
It's like one of those bucking broncos.
Because like by the time by the time you fall off, you're floundering about. The boat has to circle back around and get you.
Would you do this again?
Never. Never.
Have you ever been water skiing?
If I can't handle tubing, do you can't do water skiing?
You're not gonna realize guys that water ski like that just with your feet. You ever seen those guys?
Oh yeah. That's insanity, is what that is.
I don't know how they do that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like you. It's like I never saw the appeal. It's like, let me get this straight. You're gonna pull me down a river. You never know what's in the river. Number one.
Yeah.
Because it's local rivers.
Right.
They can pull you right through like toxic waste or a rock.
Not
or
to
whatever.
mention, much like the rivers in this game, there's people fishing from the banks. There's probably all kinds of lures and stuff out there.
And then you can fall off. I see videos of people like going like 4 stories up in the air and flying off.
Right.
That can't feel good.
Right. In fact, kiting is a thing.
Kiting?
Yeah,
What's that
kiting
mean?
is where you get, instead of a tube, you basically get on like a large flat surface, right?
Yeah.
And you're hanging on, and the boat starts going so fast that you get up in the air, and then it's a hang gliding situation, except you're still tethered to the boat.
That sounds horrible.
39 people have died since 2005.
You ever see those people that like hook a glider to the back of a boat? You know?
Like parasail.
Right. You know the wrestler Brutus the Barber Beefcake?
I do.
He had his face ripped off doing that. It was ripped
Oh
off.
my gosh.
So I'm out on all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm the lazy river type.
Yeah.
In fact, I like the kind of rap you get in that thing with a cool adult beverage.
That's right.
And then you cruise down the lazy river. That's the kind of thing I'm into. The boat, no boat. The only boat I'd get hooked on is like a paddle boat. That way they can't build up too much speed.
Yeah. Paddle boating is an exciting subject we'll tackle in the next ridiculous banter.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, tubing.
Yeah.
So, first of all, let's talk about the history of tubing. It's an activity with a long, storied history.
Is it really?
First of all, did you know in New Zealand, the activity is known as biscuiting?
Well, no, I didn't know that, boat.
So tubing, according to Wikipedia, was invented on the Black River in Missouri by Jan and Harriet Wright of Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
How could they possibly know that?
the sources are disputed. Sources are disputed.
Just two geeks like, oh yeah, we did that. Did they just get an old tire and then they invented it?
That's the thing. Like, I have a feeling that most facts from history were just made up, and nobody could counter them. There was no comment section in the magazine.
That's true. You're right.
So,
everything before the internet, you can dispute.
What it brought it about was the as automobiles became more and more popular, inner tubes began to proliferate.
Okay, yeah.
We continue to see them scattered on the roadside to this very day.
Yeah.
So, Toobin is the first arcade game to capitalize on this, and as far as I know, it's one of the few that exist.
I can't think of too many other ones that had Toobin.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there was no Toobin 2. I'm going to spoil that one early. So Toobin was released by Atari Games and Midway Games in 1988. First of all, Aaron, I thought that this was a much earlier game. I thought this was like 84, 85. Did you have any idea this was that late in the game?
I did figure it was. I mean, because of it's just the visuals, this is sort of like what I think of. It's like you've had your Paperboy that era. This is the stuff that came along that were like in the same ballpark.
Yeah. That's why I thought graphically this is about. I mean, it's a little bit prettier than Paperboy.
Oh yeah,
but it's in the same wheelhouse.
The audio is way better.
The audio is way better. You're right. So this game features two playable characters: Biff, not from Back to the Future, and Jet, who compete in a river race against the computer or another player. The game is, I would call it a colorful romp down a lazy river full of obstacles and things that are trying to sink your tube.
Yeah, and also it's not that lazy. There's waterfalls and stuff. There's a satanic part of the river.
It's a more active river.
Yeah.
So Toobin was developed by the Atari Games Corporation, which was a subsidiary of Atari that focused on arcade games. The game was designed by Milt Loper, who also worked on games like Paperboy, 720, and Road Blasters.
You can tell. It's got some of the same sound effects. Mm-hmm. The gameplay has it reminds me to a certain degree of Paperboy, and that's not a bad thing in my mind.
Right. The game's graphics were created by Will Noble and Mark West. They drew the graphics for Marble Madness, Rampart, and Steel Talons. Are you familiar with Steel Talons?
I remember the name. I don't remember playing it.
I haven't played that one. The game's music was composed by Brad Fuller, who worked on Zybots, Clax, and Cyberball. Toobin was published by Atari Games Corporation in North America and Domark Software in Europe. This game was also licensed to Harmony Gold for distribution in Japan.
It's a good name. Harmony Gold. I like that.
The game was later ported to various home computers and consoles by Midway, who acquired Atari Games in 1996. You remember when that went down?
Yeah.
Midway bought Atari.
It's funny because Atari went to war with itself for a while. Its console division and its arcade division didn't get along. Yeah, yeah, you got that right.
Yeah. So, it's time to talk about the game lore, Aaron.
All right, yeah.
Okay. So, Toobin is set in various rivers around the world and beyond. The game has 3 different classes of difficulty, each with 5 rivers. So the rivers, you got your Colorado River, your Amazon River, the Nile. Pretty much any river that's a famous river is represented in this game. But you also have the river Styx.
Yes.
In this game.
Yes.
Not a river that's commonly tubed down.
No.
You've also got the canals of Mars.
Yeah.
You go back in time to the Jurassic time period. You go all over the world on these rivers in your tubes. The game's story is simple. Biff and Jet are 2 friends who love tubing, and they decide to enter a river race. This is a crazy river race.
No kidding.
So there's all kinds of on the river. There's all kinds of obstacles. There's crocodiles, fishermen, ghosts, aliens, dinosaurs. Pretty much anything they could throw in there.
Creature from the back lagoons in there. There's all kinds of stuff in there.
So Biff is your typical blonde-haired, muscular fellow who wears a red cap and a blue shirt. Jet is a brown-haired guy. He's the default 2-player character. If you play this game in the arcade, then you have the other player plays along with you, and it's not a 1-player only affair.
Right. Get everybody to race.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the cabinet of this game, Aaron. You've got a representation of the cabinet there on the side of the screen.
Yeah.
This is a real interesting looking game physically. The marquee is large. It almost looks like a Dragon's Lair marquee, but instead of another screen being mounted up there, it's just a really big square-shaped marquee. Do you remember seeing this one in the arcade?
Absolutely, yeah. It has a big square picture of as the marquee. It's a good-looking picture too. It's an unusual. You'll recall 720 also had a Wacky cabinet with a Wacky shape and the radio at the top. So Atari would break these out sometimes. This isn't as memorable as that, but it's definitely one that stands out. And occasionally I would see conversions that use Toobin, and they always look weird because they had to come up with something to put up there where the marquee was.
Right. This game's also unusual because it does not employ a joystick or yoke. This game is button-driven 100%. Yeah. You've got buttons to flap your arms in either direction, to paddle backwards or forwards.
I love your flap your arms motion. Do that again.
That's what I do.
That's what that is.
Maybe that wasn't where I was successful on Toobin.
No. You look like a bird. It's about its last leg.
So, this was, of course, the one of the first arcade games, if not the first, to feature tubing as a theme. It was also one of the first games to use a lot of digitized speech.
Yeah.
These guys are talking all the time. They're saying wacky things. They're going, ah!
Yeah, they mostly are screaming.
Yeah.
And it's easy to understand why. Yeah.
Toobin has been included in several compilations of classic arcade games. The old Midway Arcade Treasures for the Xbox.
Yeah.
Arcade Party Pack. This game, of course, also got, recently in 2021, it got an Arcade 1-Up treatment as part of one of their games.
That's kind of neat, yeah.
This game has been referenced or parodied in The Simpsons, Family Guy, Robot Chicken, South Park. Everybody knows about Toobin. It's a cultural
Which is weird, because I
touchstone.
don't remember it being that popular at the time.
Yeah. So, that's a little bit. Now, before we move on to the Amiga port, Aaron, tell me about your experience playing the arcade game.
You know, I really like this game. And for a bunch of reasons. It's unique. It's got a unique look, like you mentioned. It's a beautiful game. It's got great music. It's fun. It's a fun game. It's the kind of game you would put beside, at your local pool or or somewhere where everyone's happy. It's a fun game. Even when you get killed a lot, it's fun. It's totally wacky, which is great. You're right. You go through all the different time periods, the stuff with the ice and the polar bears and the creature from the Black Lagoon, all that crazy stuff. It's super fun, the river sticks. And the fact that you play two players simultaneous is fun. And the controls, this is one of those games that you play it and the controls are wacky and you're not going to have pinpoint, that controls are the game in a lot of ways. And so they are masterable. You can get in there and get good at it, but it takes a lot of tries to get into it.
I like a good button mashy game.
Yeah.
Give me a track and field, something like where I can really go to town. And what's great, like you said on this game, is when you got two players and they're, it's really, really fun. If this game had a joystick like the home ports, it loses something. I'm not going to say it loses everything, but it loses something.
I will say, and we'll get to it, but I think they did a pretty decent job of converting the controls to the home version without making it lame. If you just steered your guy around the water, that would suck.
Right.
That's not the game,
Right.
But yeah, it's a fun game. It's also a game where it's even amusing to watch your guy get killed sometimes. It's real fun to see your buddy get killed. You can screw your buddy over by ramming him, which is always a good time, stealing the cans. That's always fun. It's just a game that I always enjoy. Now, not everyone enjoys this game, I know that. But for me, hey, and the thing is, once again, you've got all the minds at Atari, the geniuses there, and they're masters at being creative and trying something different. And they took parts of what they learned in a game like Paperboy, but this game doesn't play like Paperboy. It's not a sequel to Paperboy. It's really got nothing to come with Paperboy except for there are some gameplay elements, but they took good stuff and they made it a fun game. That's what I like about it. It makes me feel happy when I play it, Bo.
Well, let's talk about the Amiga version now. So the Amiga version of Toobin was ported by Teque London, Teque.
Yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce
it.
that.
Yeah, we've come across them a few times over the years.
Yeah, they worked on Badlands, Dragon Breed, and Xenon 2. And the programmer of the Amiga version was Sean Hollingworth. He worked on Soccer Kid. The graphics were done by Mark Potente, who did Legends. Remember Legends, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the music was done by Matt Furness. He did the music in a game we just recently covered on Amigos, Castle Master.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
although I don't remember that game having a ton of great music.
I think it maybe just had the Stirring Love theme, and that was it. So, the game itself, if you compare it to the arcade original, the thing that stands out mostly, to me at least, is that this game is another example of a vertically oriented playfield that has been squashed together to make it a screen-filling experience.
Yeah.
A 4x3, if you will.
A little more real estate in this one than you did in the arcade.
You think so?
Well,
I mean, it's the other way around.
Do you really think so?
You get more horizontal space, but you get much less vertical space.
Exactly.
Half.
You get more horizontal space. The problem is, in this game, it would be nice to get both.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
You know, vertical space is important in this game because you need to know what's coming up.
Right.
You need to know what's coming up. In Toobin, we should talk a little bit more about the actual mechanics of the game. So as you paddle down the river, in the Amiga version, what you essentially do is you use your button to paddle, and you use your stick to kind of steer yourself left or right. It's kind of like tank controls.
Well, you sort of like I thought you when I played this, you sort of like moved up and down to sort of paddle, and the button would shoot your can.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. That's what you do. So, in this game, let's talk about shooting the cans, okay?
Yeah.
So this game is not an ecologically conscious game.
Well, no, you're picking up the cans.
Well, you're
theoretically, you're throwing them out of the water.
You pick up cans and then you throw them at your adversary. So as you make your way down, this game kind of plays like an inverted Paperboy. Where instead of moving up a road throwing papers at things, you're moving down a river throwing cans at things. And the difference is in Paperboy, your main job is to throw things at stuff. In this game, you can get really, really far without throwing a single can.
Although you're going to get to a point, you really need to throw a lot of cans to ensure you're non-death, because they put stuff in bad spots, and the cans, like you can use the cans in ways I don't think people understand. Like for example, when you go through the gates, there can be like a stick out of the water.
Right.
You can actually hit
right
it
away.
And when you hit it, sometimes they'll give you more cans or treasure, something like that. Or you can also knock out the fishermen on the side of the screen. You can hit stakes and stuff that'll stun them. Sometimes they'll go away. Even like hippos, you can hit with them and they'll go away.
Right.
So the cans are important. Mastery of the cans in this is as important as mastery of the actual moving of the guy.
And that is where this is the part of Toobin that I'm not very good at, is throwing cans is very difficult because you are, in Paperboy, when you throw a paper, there's only one place to throw it.
Yeah.
You just let it go. Right. You just let it go. In this game, you have to kind of aim your body to throw the can at the right place.
You have to, it's because you move your tube like the hands on a compass, basically. It's like, bam, you kind of go around in like ticks, like I'm saying. So, what we need in this is a rotary dial, right?
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
But when you move your guy around, you like if you need to shoot something on the left, you've got to turn your guy totally left, then shoot. Your guy will not just throw like off to the side. He has to be perfectly dead on the target.
Exactly.
Really, your guy's begging to get killed. Is basically what he's doing.
And while you're turning your body around, many things are swimming towards you rapidly to kill you.
Yeah, swimming towards you, flying towards you, falling on you.
This game features an Evil Otto-like dude in the form of a Chinese dragon, or I guess it's an alligator. But it looks like a Chinese dragon. It looks like it's got a long tail.
It's in the water. Is why. Yeah. If you dilly dally too long or take too long to get to gates, then he'll come out, and you have to run away from him.
The humans on the edge of the screen, it escalates quickly. In the first level, you've got a guy doing some fishing, right? And he's not really in your way. The second level, you got a guy with a rifle full on shooting you.
Yeah, the fisherman, what you're actually running over is this bobber and the hook.
Right.
And which is funny, but he's a fly fisherman. It's sad that we know this, but we live here.
Yeah.
And so that's why he's continuously taking the reel in and out, so you can time it, or you can just bash him with a can.
Unfortunately, fly fishermen rarely use bobbers.
That's true. That's true. We got lucky that this guy does.
Yeah. This game is a lot like Xevious in that there's no stopping point. The levels are...
That's going to be the first time those words have ever been uttered.
Well, hey, I've got Xevious on the brain, as you do. This game, oddly, In the Amiga version, you start in the water, you end in the water.
Yeah.
In the arcade version, they actually show you at the starting line, jump into the river. I would have liked to have seen that in the Amiga version. Put a little something in there.
The arcade version's got a lot more pizzazz than the Amiga version.
This game, you're floating down an infinite river, and whenever you go to the next zone, basically the details of the current river zone you're on just sort of fade away. The next river loads into view.
Yeah.
This game gives you 4 credits.
Yeah.
And I was able to get pretty far.
Yeah.
Pretty far on 4 credits.
Yeah. You can go pretty well on it. This game, it is a game, especially the Amiga version in particular. It's more fun with 2 people. Me and the Brent used to play this back in the day. And it is a lot of fun because you're ramming your buddy in the obstacles. It's a much harder game with 2 people. And even if you try to work together, this isn't like Gauntlet or something where you can team up and do great.
Right.
You're probably boned.
Yeah.
Because there's not that much space and there's so many targets and stuff coming at you. But the one thing that I like about, and we'll talk about what I like about the Amiga version of this, the much maligned Amiga version, which we'll get to, this captures the spirit of the arcade version. It's got great songs. The graphics are good. Are they arcade perfect? No, but they're good. It doesn't have the changing rivers. Yes. Does it give you mostly changing enemies? Yes. It doesn't have as many enemies as the arcade does, if I'm honest. You don't see the submarines. You don't see like the demon stuff. There's a lot of stuff you don't see, but it's got some of the bad guys in it, which is fun. And there's a good time to be had here. As you go through the gates, the more you hit the gates, the less points you get. So if you're trying to go for points, that's a fun way to try to become more accurate. The fact that you can go backwards as the screen moves forwards, unique in a game like this. So you can actually, if you miss a gate, even though the screen's on a hard roll, you can sort of back up as fast as you can.
Right.
Just like the arcade, you kind of get through that gate.
And there are also some places where you have to backtrack to get to certain items.
Like there's usually goodies in there, like cans or a beach ball or whatever you can go in there and get. But I mean, I personally always liked this on the Amiga. In fact, I always thought the Amiga had a real good version of this, if I'm honest. And I thought it was real fun. I mean, is this a game you're going to sit and play for 6 hours straight? No. This is one of those games you just load up occasionally, you play a few rounds of it, and then you move on. It's not an all-time great at home, but it is fun. And the arcade, if you play the arcade versions, you've got a lot more. There's a lot more pizzazz to that one. You can probably get a little more playtime with that one.
I really disagree with a lot of the way this game is scored. This is one of these games where you have a continuously upticking score.
Yeah.
And I just think that's dumb. You don't need to have that. You should get points because what it does, whenever you hit something with your can, it's like 500 points. But you've got 8 zillion points for just being in the river.
Yeah.
It
I assume it's survival time points.
It undermines another reason to throw the cans. Like I said, I played for a long way on 4 credits, and I threw maybe like 2 or 3 cans. Because like you said, the aiming is so precise that I found myself, whenever I would try to get myself lined up, I would immediately die because I wasted too much time.
I mostly use the cans to just knock away obstacles that are in front of me. And they work great for that. In fact, this week was the first time I realized you could. I always just avoided stuff, but I didn't realize you could hit sticks.
I didn't realize that either.
And so that helps a lot. I got a lot farther once I figured that out.
What I wish they would have done in this game, in the arcade version, the Amiga version, there's just not enough buttons. But I wish that they would have made this more like Paperboy in that you can't, throwing. They should have just had like throw left, throw right, throw center. And be able to hit the guys, because I wanted to be able to nail those fishermen, or
There'd
those
be
hunters.
A defender level of buttons at that point.
Right, I know.
That's the problem.
What I would have liked to have seen, hear me out with this.
Yeah.
Rotary stick.
Yeah.
And then directional buttons for firing the cans.
How would you move forward and backward?
You just flow. You flow with the river.
Wow, I'm glad you didn't design this game, Bo. Let me ask you, since you looked into this, to me, it doesn't seem like the Amiga version has all the different rivers. Does it have them all? Because I didn't see the docks area. I didn't get to the part where you could see Mars. I never saw that.
I saw like basically what we're seeing is what I saw when I played this game. So I'm not sure if you keep on going. It did seem to loop a lot more. So I would wager that they didn't include all of the rivers in this game.
Yeah, I didn't cheat on this. I mean, I played a square game, and I didn't get far enough to see, I guess, everything, or maybe I did.
Well, and the thing that I like also is that this is a game that has multiple pieces of music in it.
Yeah,
you play and then
they
eventually
fade in and out.
It fades. I wish that more games did that. I mean, how many games we play where there's no music? In this game, there's 3 or 4 tunes that play, and they're all good. They're quality songs.
You know what it reminds me of, because of the premise of the game? It reminds me of like when you're like at an amusement park, you know, and you're one of those boats, and you go from like one little scene to another, and that's the way it works.
Yeah.
They sort of fade out, then you kind of float toward the other one, it floats, and it comes in. It's sort of the same thing.
I love those kinds of rides.
Me too. That should be a game.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, they've got the ones now where you shoot the laser gun from. That's lame.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I just want to see stuff. I want to sit in the seat and move, let the world move by me and see crap.
Have you been to Disney World before? The one in Florida? Yeah. Did you get on the It's a Small World ride?
It's the same sort of deal.
Like, why do you get on that though? Right? Because it's because it's cool in there. It's why you get on it.
That's right.
It's the only reason. But you know, this playing a game like Toobin, it really does. It's here we are. It's the heat of summer, right? In real life, right? As we record this, and here are guys. These guys are whooping, hollering, having a good time. They're going down the river in their tube. That looks like a lot of fun. This looks like the kind of crap my dad would do, complete with people be shooting at you and trees falling out of the sky. And the tube, I will say, whoever planned this race is evil. Because this river is unstable. The Amiga version, trees are falling everywhere. There's crap in the river. There's just rocks that fall off the mountains on top of you. And the timing, much like Paperwood, the timing of the obstacles is uncanny.
That's right. As soon as you're about to fall by, here it comes.
Stuff will float on you, fall on you. It'll hit you, stab you. I mean, it's brutal. This is like the Cannonball Run of these kind of Toobin rallies. So I don't want to suggest that. Also, I like the fact that in some parts of the game, and this is in the arcade too, you'll go over falls. You'll also get caught by currents where you don't even touch the controls. They just sort of sweep you for a little while, which I like. The arcade has even like little streams that will catch you and stuff. This one doesn't have that.
The water effects in the arcade version are a lot cooler because they show you how the river is running.
Yeah.
So, you know, whenever you're about to hit a rapid, you can see it coming up. But I would say graphics-wise, I would say they did, I put it an 8 out of 10 in terms of recreating the graphics of the arcade.
I thought graphically they did a pretty decent job. I thought they did the water effects aren't as cool, obviously, but I mean, that was a custom hardware from the arcade that was out after the Amiga.
Right.
So, I mean, what do you want here? Well, you're not going to get it all.
We're getting to the point now where arcade to Amiga conversions, they're going to have to make some sacrifices.
Right.
What I would love to see is JOTD get in there and do a Tapper-like port.
This would be a tough one, though, because, again, you said 88, right? I mean, the Amiga was well in by that point. Think about the guy that had to do this port as we look at it, which is the Game Boy Color. I thought it'd be fun we don't get to compare the Amiga to the Game Boy Color all that often. Did you ever play the Game Boy Color version?
No, but I'll tell you who did the music for this, Mr. Alistair Brimble.
I've heard of him.
For the Game Boy Color.
Wow, he's everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah. Now, I will say they took a little bit different tack with the water effects in the Game Boy Color version. It looks like our man's having some problems getting around. They got a couple of too many adult beverages before he entered the tube.
This is like if I was in there after a few. It's like, oh man. Can you imagine in real life having to get in this lake and try to survive?
No.
My God, I'd be dead a million times.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting take. Obviously, the Amiga and the Game Boy Color probably pretty comparable in what they can do. And the Game Boy Color they took a different tack in terms of the way they do the water effects. It looks a lot more weird.
Was the Game Boy Color? I mean, was it more than a Game Boy that had color? I mean, did they upgrade the processor and stuff in it?
I believe it was slightly more, but not really.
Okay, I would assume the Amiga would be more advanced than that.
The Game Boy Advance was the big step.
Although I will say the Game Boy's water effects look pretty good.
Yeah.
They look okay. Both of them use that cycling technique that we all know and love so well. But good stuff on the. I like this game. I like the arcade game. If you like one, you'll probably like the other one. If you only had one to play with, this is the one to play, the Amiga version. But I mean, if you've got access to the arcade version, that's the one to play. I don't think the Amiga version brings anything to the table that you're not going to get in the arcade version, unless you just want to play this on a 4x3 screen. But
Right. Now, the magazines, Aaron, were not kind.
I saw this. I was stunned at this.
Yeah, the average magazine rating is 72%. Why do you think that was?
I'll be honest with you. I looked through, this has a horrible score on Lemon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's under 5.
Mm-hmm.
And people in the comment section were just killing it. And I thought, these people must be nuts. And I went down and looked at the magazine scores, and they were low. I mean, some of them were real low.
Yeah, like Amiga Power, 39%.
I saw that. Those guys are nuts. Listen, we've played more than most Amiga games. This is a fun, lighthearted conversion that you can play. I think this is an easy B game, or maybe a C+.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to fight a guy with a 70 score on this. But something like a 30, that's ridiculous. Plus, how many games can you play that are like this, that have multiplayer, simultaneous multiplayer play? And this does bring something special to the table in multiplayer. So yeah, throw these scores out. And even throw out the Lemon score. And I usually really think Lemon, they do a pretty good job there. But I think a lot of people just straight up said they didn't like this in the arcade.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe a game like this, the time has passed.
Yeah, and if you don't like the arcade version, you're not going to like the Amiga version.
No, and also get your head checked if you don't like it. I'll say it.
We got some reviews here on Discord. David Hearn Ryder writes, Toobin is a competent conversion of a mediocre Atari coin-op. Making your way down the river, avoiding obstacles while throwing cans might sound rad, but it doesn't take long before you're ready to move on to something else. The limited scope and appeal are more an issue with the arcade parent than the Amiga conversion.
There you go.
7 old tires out of 10. We got a review from Mr. Pajako6502. He writes, it's not a game I gravitate to, but it's a fun one to play. The Amiga should be able to pull this game off with ease, and this version is good, but it doesn't feel like it makes good use of the machine. Graphics are nice, sound is great, but Toobin on the Amiga stumbles a bit with its sprite collision. Your player will get stuck on things or you'll lose a life by hitting killer obstacles you don't appear to have touched. Plus, the movement is slower and feels like there is a wider turning circle than the arcade. You can't turn on the rapids, and the music will just stop for a couple seconds before restarting, which makes the game seem a bit unfinished. But shocker, we get music and sound effects, so I'll give it a big thumbs up for that. Part of the problem with today's tech is that I can easily switch between playing home ports and arcade versions at the drop of a hat, so some games get an unfair comparison these days. But for those who didn't have regular arcade access back in the day, this would have been a good substitute, although it could have done with more polish. Also, some of the 8-bit ports are more playable. 7.5 out of 10. P.S. Why did they make you push up on the joystick to move down the screen? Isn't that just a weird choice?
It's because controls are part of it. See, I think that's a perfect example of, and not that rag on Bajako. It's a perfect example of somebody that I don't think they played the arcade that much. This thing, you can get hung up on stuff all the time. If you get anywhere near it, it's the way the arcade is. The music fades in and out in the arcade too. That's part of the game. Mm-hmm. The controls are part of the game. I mean, and also getting on the Amiga for not being able to graphically pull this off isn't fair. This came out after the Amiga was around, for God's sakes. And the hardware was good. It was good. Atari had good stuff. This is not an easy thing to pull off with 100% arcade accuracy. I mean, maybe an AGA machine could do it, or if someone like you said, if one of the boys really went after it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if you look at this in the arcade, graphically, it's very impressive. I've always thought.
I think so too.
And so I think you're asking a lot for a direct, pixel to pixel comparison here, conversion to the Amiga. I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, again, the game's not for everyone, but I like it. It's lighthearted fun.
I did look this up on eBay, Aaron.
Yeah.
You can get your own copy of Toobin for the Amiga loose for about $6.
Oh, man.
It's easy pickup. Or this was actually part of the TNT compilation, which included Zybots, Toobin, APB, Dragon Spirit, and Drivin'. This
weird.
You can get
what a
all
weird.
of those games as part of the TNT compilation for around $17 plus a ton of money for shipping to the United States.
Yeah.
Don't buy that and ship it to the United States. It's not worth it.
That's weird. I'll do like the box on this thing too. Listen, all I'm going to say to close the shop on this, when it's summertime and you can't go outside, hop in the river, load up Toobin, have yourself a good time.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
Game.
All right, Aaron, what do we got coming up next week?
Who knows? Let's find out. Bam. We don't even know.
We don't even know.
It's mystery time.
This is the final week of the Amigos Summer of Arcade as we are lounging around somewhere in the middle of July. But we'll be back next week on our regular schedule, recording live every Friday night. Please join us then for our mystery game. We'll see you then, and until then,
adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/AmigosPodcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.